Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, on the 16th of January, near midnight, while the lights of Broadway, Lord Faulkner had had a difficult struggle to face in this world, but he'd had an even more difficult one to face in his own heart. A struggle that this trial will have to uncover. Faulkner thought he had found salvation and a new lease on life in the virtuous innocence of his new young bride. Ladies and gentlemen, one is not easily through with a woman like Karen Andre. We can only guess at the hatred and revenge that smoldered in her heart, that leapt into flame on the night of January 16th. Bjorn Faulkner didn't commit suicide. He was murdered. Kindly state your name.
Dr. Alexandra Kirkland.
And your occupation?
I am the medical examiner of this county.
In the course of your duties, what were you called upon to do on the night of January 16th? For example, had his skull been crushed before the fall, would you have been able to tell by examining the body?
No.
To an accident.
Accident? What accident? And did Karen Andre tell you, as she later stated at the inquest, that she had never heard of him?
Yes, sir.
Was she very emphatic about that? Yes, sir. Kindly state your name.
You know it. You just called me.
Please answer my questions without argument. For the record, state your name.
Nothing.
Mrs. Faulkner?
I heard you wanted to call me as a witness, Mr.
I did, Mrs. Faulkner, but I thought you were in California.
I was.
I can see that this will be difficult for you, Mrs. Faulkner, and we all appreciate your courage. But I'm going to have to ask you some questions that are going to awaken some sad memories. Mrs. Faulkner, if you'd like, we could stop here and pick this up tomorrow.
No,
We could
that's
talk to
okay.
the judge.
I can go on. It
All
was
right.
only...
Did Mr. Faulkner tell you about his relationship with Karen Andre? So as far as his business affairs were concerned, Bjorn Faulkner had no reason to commit suicide. Was there anything peculiar about the way he said goodbye to you that night?
No.
Now, Mr. Whitfield, it's obvious that you're well qualified to comment on financial matters. What would prompt you to make such a giant loan? Oh, that's outrageous, Your Honor! Objection!
Do you know who I am? Do you know I can
Whoa,
crush you
Your Honor.
like a cockroach?
That is just what I wanted to prove. Thank you, Mr. Whitfield.
Your Honor, the prosecution moves that this unfortunate remark from the defense counsel be stricken from the record. Now, Ms. Johnson, you were employed by Mr. Faulkner for 8 years, was it?
Yes.
Well, do you realize now what a criminal Mr. Faulkner was?
No, I do not.
And I suppose you don't know what any of those little business transactions you were doing for him were all about, do you? How do you know that?
Because he was Bjorn Faulkner.
Oh, and he could do no wrong. That is splendid, Miss Johnson. Little people like you and me, your devotion to your master is worthy of admiration. You'd do anything for him, wouldn't you? So a little matter of a few lies for your master's sake, you could do that. That's not a problem, right? Just what is your business, Mr. Regan?
You'd like me to answer that, wouldn't you?
May I question you as to whether or not you read newspapers?
You may.
Well,
Question me.
kindly state whether you read newspapers. Well, what's to say it's not the other way around? What if you did steal O'Toole's body? What's to prove that you didn't come up with this fantastic idea yourself, that you didn't stash the airplane and the body in New Jersey and then come back with this fantastic story in a desperate attempt to save your mistress? You heard her testify that you'd do anything for her, that you'd lie for her. I must confess, Miss Andre, there's nothing much left for me to do. You've done all my work yourself, that you love Bjorn Faulkner, such as he was. Exactly, Miss Andre. You cultivated a romantic relationship with a notorious gangster. You met a man and were raped by him on the same day and then lived with him in an illicit relationship for 10 years. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, two very different types of humanity are opposed in this case. You're asked by the defense to take the word of a harlot, of a gangster, and a swindler over a man who has been a model of social responsibility his entire adult life, and a woman who has been everything the ideal of womanhood has been for centuries. Keeping in mind the mountain of evidence against Karen Andre, I ask that your verdict reflect the fact that we will not allow anyone to raise his or her head too high above our common standards. Thank you for your service.